Today we're talking the top 5 mistakes beginners make in post-production sound and how you can avoid them. Hey friend, welcome back to Mastering Post-Production Sound. My name is Joel. I'm a sound re-recording mixer, sound supervisor, been part of the post-production sound industry for the past 16 years. It's crazy. 16 years. And I'm here to help you navigate the post-production sound industry. I always think about 16 years because my oldest is 16. He's going to be 17. And so I'm coming up on 17 years in the industry. It's nuts. It's crazy. But today, let's dive right into this about the top 5 mistakes. It's going to go through this and just let you know how you can avoid them, because some of these pitfalls and roadblocks can be avoided. So the first mistake, we're going to jump right into this. No intros and stuff like that. The first mistake is not organizing your session properly. Trust me, I'm telling you by experience, man. I have worked on some real messy sessions that have been delivered to me, and there's nothing more annoying than trying to import a session that has been edited, but it is just sloppy, okay? Not having a well-organized session can slow you down. It can leave you open to having more mistakes. And really, the solution is getting organized. And that can mean a couple things. It can mean making sure your tracks all have the same color, organizing them in food groups. When you bring in them, make sure everything's labeled properly, because here's the deal. I know that most of you who are watching and tuning in are working either in your own home studio or by yourself. And so really, you're not delivering edit sessions, whether it's a dialogue session or an effect session, to somebody else, right? You're doing it, you're giving it to yourself. But let me tell you what a great practice it is to get in the habit of being well organized, okay? And I'm telling you, from your track colors to your naming convention, your groups, okay? Dialogue tracks, maybe you want to have some certain groups on your effects tracks. Make sure things are organized and labeled very well, okay? And I think about this. When I sit down and I'm mixing everything together, there's a layout. It doesn't have to be like this, but just find a solution, find a way, an organized way that works out for you laying your session out. For my session, usually at the top, I have the picture, then I have my guide tracks. Maybe there's a dialogue guide track, ADR guide track, effects guide track, music guide track, then maybe like a stereo guide track from the Avid output. And then I start with my dialogue tracks. I go dialogue tracks, and then after the dialogue tracks, I'll have like PFX there, ADR or futzes, probably some futz dialogue, ADR, loop group, and then I have my music tracks, and then I'll go into hard effects, backgrounds, walla, Foley, okay? And then there'll be buses and VCAs in there. But you see there's a clear path. It's organized. I look at it, I'm like, no, okay, it's in order. Friend, I don't know how you could sit down and have dialogue here, music in between, then there's some Foley, and then maybe some background tracks in here, and then the guides are way down. I don't care what order it's in, but find a way to organize everything so it's all together. You don't want things, separated in between different things. You have some effects tracks over here, then the OMF is sprinkled somewhere in there. Trust me, find a method for you, find what works for you, what's pleasing to your eye. The way I laid it out is pretty standard. Of course, I then hide my picture and my guides when I don't need them. But I'll have like a memory locate act as sort of like a recall to have all the tracks there. But whatever it is, find a way, because having a well-organized session, friend, it saves you time and can reduce a tremendous amount of frustration when you are sitting down to mix, or if you're handing that off to somebody, especially if you are editing for somebody else. So in my line of work, I am constantly working on material that has been edited by somebody else, either a dialogue editor, an effects editor, somebody who's cutting the ADR, somebody who's cut the Foley. It's always coming in. Be clean, be organized. The last thing you want to do is deliver it terribly, because then you're going to get feedback. And some people, I don't like that they're mean, but some people call me mean. I'm not mean, okay? I will take the moment to educate and to teach you if you delivered sessions that, had different colors, different naming conventions, And that's another thing, naming conventions. Like, pick something that works for you and stick to it. So for my dialogue tracks, I like to name them DX1, DX2, and go on down. Effects, FX1. If I'm usually in food groups for effects, so it's like A effects 1, through 12, B effects, C effects. But whatever it is, don't label like your soundtracks chairs, squeaks, hand pats. Don't name the track a random sound effect name. Be organized. That is one of the biggest signs of immaturity and lack of experience in the industry. So clean up your tracks. Now, of course, you could throw this all out the window if you're mixing yourself. You don't want to name it. You want to get lazy. I understand. But no, trust me, it's going to help you even if you're mixing solo. So everything can be organized. Everything can be clean. It's just going to make your mixing process much, much smoother. Okay, the second thing, biggest mistakes that beginners make in post-production sound is overusing effects, over-processing, okay? And this is overusing reverbs, overusing EQs, overusing noise reductions on, dialogue. That is, I know it's tempting to use all the plugins, to have all the plugins in the world and know what they all do, but I'm telling you right now, as a seasoned mixer, I have seen the effects of colleagues in this industry over-processing, using too much EQ, using too much noise reduction, and it's not a good result. And I'm saying to the point that I've seen people let go from projects, removed from movies, films, TV shows, things like that, because they were overusing the tool. So this, my friend, is not only a common mistake in beginners, but it happens at this level too. So don't overuse it. Use it sparingly. Use your reverb, your EQ, your dialogue noise suppressor, your isotope RX. Use it sparingly. Use it in the right moments. And as what we like to call workshopping, when you have time to workshop your plugin to really understand what it does. Like, let's check out this reverb. What does it do? A really awesome plugin out there, Slapper. I want to go deeper and deeper on Slapper, but it's like, take time to understand what it does instead of just breaking it out as a gimmick, okay? Because that doesn't go very well with clients, if they see you messing around. And in the end, really, you want to use it sparingly. And especially, I'm talking especially to dialogue editors out there. One tip I would always say is, if you're cutting dialogue for somebody, please make sure that you always have a version of your edit, of your dialogue cut, unprocessed below, whether it's on X tracks or on, in a hidden tracks folder that's just inactive. Make sure that the original dialogue cut is always accessible to the dialogue mixer, or to the to yourself if you're mixing solo, so that I know as a dialogue editor, part of your job is to clean up some of that stuff. Go ahead, take a pass, clean that stuff up, but go to that point where you barely touch it, right? You'll know. You experiment, right? This is where curiosity, which I always talk about, this is where curiosity leads to growth. Being curious about what's too far, find that point, right? And back it off, right? Or just barely touch it. It's good to know how much is too much, okay? But again, if we're notching every hum and buzz out and using EQ in so many crazy different ways, trust me, just start flat. Then introduce some of these cool tools like EQ, noise suppression, reverb. This is one of the biggest reasons we get great responses in our mixes is because we're subtle with that. When we have to use it, we know how much to use and in the proper settings. So try that process with that. And remember, do not overuse the effects. So the third biggest mistake is ignoring your room space, or rather, let's call it acoustics, right? Your room acoustics. Not all of you have the opportunity and fortune to be mixing on a mix stage like this all the time, right? I'm very fortunate that I get to, when I do mix, I'm coming onto stages like this lovely stage, stage 11 at Smart Post Sound. Shout out to Smart Post Sound. Thank you for letting me use this. I'm fortunate. I realize it. So a lot of you who are watching are either doing mixes on their laptops or have a stereo set up in their garage or in their bedroom. Let's just say you're in your room, right? Well, when we neglect the audio impact that an unproperly treated room has, we can really start going down a rabbit hole when it comes to our mixes. So let's say you're in your home, right? And I'm talking about what can you do to help treat the environment, right? Do you have acoustic panels, and do you have bass traps, diffusers, different things? Now, obviously, not everybody has that kind of money or that kind of budget, so go out there and find a couple DIY things, some cheap alternatives. If you're in a room with no curtains, it's literally just 4 walls. Like my friend, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be really difficult to trust that what you're hearing from your monitors is really how things are going to play, because you're going to have slap and reverb coming from all areas because of just the natural way sound works and how it'll be bouncing off. So can you get, some moving blankets and hang them up? Can you put, a couch that might, into the back wall that might, diffuse and rather, capture some of that low end, for you. So find a way to deaden things up, because that really does matter, as far as our ears go. So another thing you could do is, besides treating your room is, I'm not a huge fan of using headphones, but getting a nice pair of headphones, some pro headphones even, might be your solution, because at least you can trust that more than what you're hearing being bounced around off your walls. In this space here, friend, I mean, we're talking, there's treatment on the walls. There's nothing that's really bouncing back. There's a little bit of like tile on the floor. It's just for look, but overall in general, it's all well treated, properly, professionally treated. They spend a lot of money doing that. So it does matter how your room is set up. So don't overlook that step. And remember, if you can't afford that, look for other cheaper alternatives to just deaden the space, okay? Or buy a good pair of headphones. Hey, friend, pardon the interruption. I just want to take a quick second to announce that the doors to the Mastering Post-Production Sound Inner Circle are wide open. That's right. You heard me. They're wide open. What is the Inner Circle? The Inner Circle is my private group coaching community. This is where we get together as a group. You ask me your questions, you get my answers. I teach you a little bit of something. I check in how you're doing. I encourage you. I meet you where you're at. We all learn together as we hear each other's questions. Then a private community where throughout the week I will be in there encouraging you. You can be connecting with other industry professionals. Friends, the doors are open only for a limited time. You want more information, head on over to masteringpostproductionsound.com/inner circle, but you got to hurry. Doors are closing fast. Let's talk about the fourth thing, which is mix translations. And this is checking your mixes, right, on different systems and understanding how does my mix translate out in the real world. So not understanding that things may sound different. If we're only listening to headphones, you owe it to yourself to listen to your mix or your sound design on a pair of monitors, on a pair of good monitors, or you're only listening to monitors. What does it sound like on headphones? Now, let me tell you how that applies in this setting. In this setting, I want to know how our mix sounds from stage to stage. For instance, in this room, I know because I've spent time listening to my material and the material that we mix come out of these monitors. I know what it feels like. I know how much low end to send to the LFE, and I feel it. Now, what's interesting is as you take your mix and you go to other mix stages and other facilities, that's a real good test to kind of sound, rather to hear how your mix sound, to get some good feedback. Oh, the room's playing a little bright, or I don't like the way it sounds on that stage, really dull, whatever it may be. Understanding how your mix translates, understanding what you can do here on the mix stage so that when it goes out to everybody, it sounds well. Now, let me tell you, one thing we pride ourselves in is having mixes that play well everywhere. Friend, we are, and I don't have anything, iPhone on me, but we're talking about, we're mixing these films and TV shows, right? Like TV shows now are like mini movies, and this big, awesome 5.1 surround, Dolby Atmos, stuff is flying everywhere for the end product to eventually sometimes be playing down to this, a speaker that's that small, or an iPhone. Again, I don't have my iPhone on me. That is playing the mix. People are going to listen to that on there. But we pride ourselves in knowing that this mix is going to go out to the world and sound great, because we've had enough experience with transition, knowing that our mix can play on this system, on that system. One of the craziest stories we ever had was we were working on a show called The Orville back years ago with Seth MacFarlane, and we were broadcasting on Fox, right? Was it Fox? Yeah, we were watching, I'm forgetting, Fox. But then guess what? Like the day later, it got uploaded to Hulu, and then it would be available for purchase or streaming or renting on Apple TV, all right, or iTunes. It had different places that it would play. And let me tell you, it was a challenge because we had to dive deep to understand how did our mix play over the broadcast air, which, if you didn't know, broadcasters will take your mix and they'll compress it, they'll limit it, they'll put it through like this little audio channel hole so that, guess what, it can go to everybody's TV, to your grandma over, in Oklahoma who's listening on a small TV. They don't want it to blow out their ears, right? But then we'll have the master file that sounds so much more closer to our mix that's uploaded on Hulu, or then it's put in somewhere else. But here's the thing, like we did so much research to listen so that we can then to know how it played back. I mean, for goodness sake, we went to Seth's house in his home theater to listen to how it sounded there. This is how deep we went with our mixes, because we wanted to make sure that we met everybody's levels and that it played well everywhere. So guess what we did? We would adjust. Okay, we need to balance this better. We need to do that better. So being able to understand how your mix translates into different environments is a very good thing. My colleague was in this room the other day, and he was playing a sample of a movie he mixed, a movie called 42. It's a Jackie Robinson story, Chadwick Boseman. And, I had a colleague who was mentioning how the space was, the amount of detail that went into that mix, and hearing it here was just gorgeous. It was beautiful. It's something you don't hear, off your TV stereo mix. But because that mix was mixed in a proper room, and these rooms, we know all these rooms, it translated perfectly. So understanding your environment is really important. And going back to like the music production days, if any of you were in a band, or maybe you're in a band now, you would go do the car radio sample, right? Let's say you got your mix. Yeah. I remember I was in a band. Okay, here I'm going to out myself here. I was a band when I was a teenager called Big Dog Small Fence. Okay. There's not a lot out there, but I remember we did our first recording in Hollywood. It was like, yeah, we did it. And then we made cassette tapes. And I remember we went and we we went into somebody's car or truck and we listened back on the radio. It's like that. It's going back to how does it sound on the car radio? How does it sound in the TV set? Nowadays, with technology, you better believe that the mix that we mix here on this stage translates very well, because now they're capable of hearing all the details with those awesome sound bars, 5.1 setups, home Atmos that are shooting speakers up to the ceiling, and you're getting a reflection. Like, you better believe that people can hear that stuff now. So knowing how your mix translates into different systems, in different environments, is a very, very important thing, because now you're going to ensure that the listeners can hear what you actually intended. Your mix translates very well across the board. So very, very important point there. Okay, and the fifth and final mistake that beginners make in the post-production sound industry are failing to back up work regularly. Are you backing up your projects? Right now, I want you to think, take a second. Have you backed up that thing you're working on, that mix, that sound design, whatever, your edit? Make sure you're doing that. Maybe you have a hard drive. Like, if you have a sound effects drive right now and you haven't backed that up, what are you doing? Go back it up. You have to. And I'm telling you this because, regretfully, I've been burned. It's happened to me, friend, and it was painful. And I lost a whole session. Thankfully, I had the stems. I was able to. I had things. I had the original units and whatnot, but I had one session just go down, and I was like, gosh darn it. And it wasn't even my fault. Well, no, it's always my fault. It was my fault. I had to take my own advice because I didn't back it up the day I trusted that it'd be fine. It's at a facility. Even facilities, my friend, have hard drives that fail. It happens. It just happens. So make sure that you implement some kind of regular routine, whether you're using an external hard drive, you're using the cloud, some kind of other backup service, and back up frequently. Set yourself a reminder, whether it's once a week. When you're backing up your, like I have a, what do you call it? What are those things called? Time machine, right? A time machine. Very easy. It's plugged in there. Boom, syncs up right every night or something like that. I forget what's on, but do it regularly, okay? Technical issues happen all the time. It happens all the time. So one way to avoid this mishap and mistake is to make sure that you are regularly backing up your hard drive. This protects not only your sound assets, but it backs up your backs up your asset, okay? If you know what I'm saying. So just cover your butt, okay? Cover your butt, because you do not want to get bit by this, because the last thing you need is a client to say, hey, can I have this and that? And guess what? You're like, oops, I'm sorry, it didn't back up my drive. And that's not going to be good. So make sure that you are always regularly backing up. So a couple other things I wanted to kind of throw in there, just as far as additional tips, is making sure that you're always getting second opinions and feedback from colleagues, from mentors, fresh ears. When you are tired, spending hours and hours and hours and hours working on something, sometimes our ears go like this. They start to pump, right? I've experienced that many times throughout my career. You're just like, okay, I have listened to it for too long. You get ear fatigue, right? Dubbing ear, you're just like, what? Everything's loud. I can't hear dynamics. That's when you take a break, or send it over to a friend, have a friend listen. Get their input, get their notes. They have fresh ears. They can catch something that we couldn't catch when we were listening on we're on our 10th, 12th, 14th hour of working on something. They may catch something that we completely have missed. So, always be seeking feedback. Another thing is to stay updated, be relevant, always be learning, okay? Whether it's staying updated with the latest industry trends, latest software updates, plugins, things like that. we have to be relevant all the time. And in this space, in this industry, technology is always advancing. It's always moving forward. So stay ahead. And my last little tidbit of feedback here is to be practicing. Just practice. Get the reps in. Practice, practice, practice. We used to have this saying back when I was a musician, because I would spend hours practicing in the practice room in college. Perfect practice, right? Makes perfect. So not practice makes perfect, but perfect practice makes perfect. But that being said, stay curious, putting in the time. Like, don't rush the process. I know right now as of the taping of this video, it's been kind of a slow time, for the industry. What are you doing to get better? Are you putting the hours in? Are you testing things? Are you workshopping things? Trying new techniques? Are you listening? That's another thing. Listen, friend. Oh, listen. Listening. Mixing is a listening art, right? We listen, right? When we listen, then we're able to apply. That's a big thing, Mixing is subjective. Yes, of course, mixing is subjective. But one of the biggest things we can do to get better as mixers is to listen. So listen. Well, I think that's all I got for today. So I want to thank you, friends, for joining me on another episode of Mastering Post-Production Sound. If you are new here, friend, welcome. Thank you for being here. I have a free gift for you. It's the 5 core principles that I've learned along the 16-year journey that I have, that I believe every post-production sound professional should know and master. You can head over and grab your free guide at masteringpostproductionsound.com/ which one is it? Insider's Guide. That's what it is. Insider's Guide, to grab your free copy. So friend, again, thank you for being here. And please do me a favor. There are a lot of new folks here, and I want to thank you for being here. And I think YouTube's being kind to me in this channel. Will you do me a favor and give this video a thumbs up? Will you favorite it, bookmark it, put a comment in, below, share it with your friends? As a matter of fact, right now, we're going to do this together. All right. A little audience participation. Where are you watching from? Let me know. That's an easy one. Hey, watching from Brazil, watching from New York, California, whatever. Just let me know in the comments below. Well, friend, thank you again. I can't thank you enough. And if you are, I was going to say, have a good 4th of July, but when you watch this video, 4th of July is going to be over. So I'll see you in one of these videos over here, friend. See you next week. Thanks.